Welcome to Imperfect Momming. Our children are constantly looking to us for examples. The term role model doesn't quite cut it here. We are shaping their worldview with every move we make. You see, it's not in the lectures we give or moments where we are actively attempting to teach them. It's in the micro movements we make, the unconscious ways in which we navigate life. We are constantly teaching our children how to show up for themselves, their friends, their future partners, and even their future children. So what can we do to ensure we are raising thoughtful, compassionate, self-aware human beings? We have to become them ourselves. No one is perfect, but we can still all be better, and it starts with self-healing. Let's get to it. Welcome back, moms, to Imperfect Momming, and we have another fabulous guest for you today, and I'm going to let her introduce herself because I'm going to butcher her name, so take it away.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Onyinye Anike, and I'm a confidence coach and online business strategist for mompreneurs who want to create the business of their dreams, hit six figures without sacrificing family time or self-care.
So, first question, how did you get to I know you have a story. So what got you here? Like, where were you and what brought you here?
Yeah. So my story, I'll just start with entrepreneurship. My story, I think the transformational point in my timeline was in 2014 when I was diagnosed with cancer. And so that was kind of the pivotal moment for me in terms of a shift in mindset. No one in my family is an entrepreneur. They're very much like 9 to 5, people. And so there was never a thought to be an entrepreneur. Cancer kind of, opened my mind to like anything and everything is possible because why not? But had the knowledge, the deep knowing that I was made to do more and be more. But that didn't really shift until my husband and I met each other, got married, and then moved out to Arizona. I'm a New Yorker through and through. And so this was a huge transition. And while there were so many changes happening, I was moving to the opposite coast. I was pregnant with my son, and I was like, why not? Let's add another thing to it. To become an entrepreneur on top of that. Mainly also because I didn't want to put my son in daycare. I was on maternity leave, and I remember thinking to myself, oh my goodness, once maternity leave is over, I have to put my 4.5-month-old in daycare. And I just didn't feel good about that. I have another one. I have a 4-year-old right now, but she luckily when I was working higher ed before we moved to Arizona, had opportunity. She literally the first year and a half of her life, she was with me in my office. And so she didn't have to be in daycare. My husband and I alternated, but that wasn't the case here. So I was like, I can't put him in daycare. And so I started my business, got certified as a coach, started off as a career coach, but ironically, the women who were coming to me wanted to transition into entrepreneurship. So I was like, maybe this is something I need to look deeper into. Got certified as a business and marketing coach, just to make sure I had the know-how to support my clients in a deeper way. And that's how we got here. It wasn't mompreneurs, actually. It was still just female entrepreneurs, but just through my journey this past year, especially with COVID, right, and everyone being stuck at home and then the kids being at home, so you're homeschooling and doing every other thing. I was like, my kids are not separate from my business. They literally are on top of me as I'm doing my business. So there's no separation from that. So that's kind of where I just was like, well, I can speak to this experience. And I know other moms are experiencing similar things. So I can help them to create the business while simultaneously doing all the things that moms do.
Yeah. If anybody knows how to teach people how to balance work and, be an entrepreneur and life and kids, I would say that's you. And I can tell you're from New York now that you said that because you're a fast talker.
Yes. Everyone notices that. They're like, wow, you talk fast.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I've heard the story of I got cancer or terminal illness or something life-threatening happened. And now it's like, whoosh, focus, right? This is what's important to me. This is what my calling is. This is what I want to do. Right.
Yeah.
but I don't know that I've met anyone who's had cancer who had that. I've heard the stories, but I don't know that I've met anybody. So I get to check that off my hasn't happened yet. So, what is something that, like, let's just start with a piece of advice that you want to give to moms who are struggling with work-life balance, with, what's your go-to advice?
Yeah, definitely. First and foremost, give yourself grace. I used to try to, and it's so funny, give yourself grace and run your own race.
Love it.
I just thought of it right now, so this is awesome.
We gotta write that down before you forget.
Yeah, I'm gonna write it down later. I'm like, I gotta write it down. This is awesome.
Good thing we're recorded.
Yes. Maybe because I think as moms, we first and foremost, we're like, we want to do it all, right? But then we also look at everyone else and we're like, why am I not there? And I remember thinking that too, but I was like, well, I have to give myself grace because I'm raising human beings, tiny humans, right? Who have minds are 4 and 2, so they're incredibly needy right now. They're still at that age. They need me, right? And so a big chunk of my time is being their mom and being present for them and taking care of them, raising them. And then another part of that is, growing a business. And even people who are like single without kids struggle to do that. Now imagine on top of that, kids, right? Like, we know what this is, mama. So it's not a walk in the park. And so a lot of times I've had to step back and say, like, I have to give myself grace. There's no such thing as balance, but there definitely is being mindful of priorities and what's important when and where. And so that's what I've learned is, like, I'm really intentional with my time and my schedule so that I'm not letting something fall in terms of, like, I'm so focused on my business that my kids are being, like, orphaned because I'm not paying them any mind. Right. Or I'm so focused on my kids that my business is just like, man, what's going on? And so really just being mindful of, like, there's going to be times when, there's going to be more focus on a business if I'm launching or I'm doing something major. And then there's going to be times for the kids when it's like, there's a birthday happening or someone starting school, something like that. And I think it's just being mindful of the different ebbs and flows of being a mom and being an entrepreneur and being okay with that. And, like, this is your journey and it's your race. You don't have to look at where everyone else is. You're exactly where you need to be.
Yeah. I mean, I spent the last, I'm going to do some math real quick in my head. We'll say 4 or 5 years or so, where I've actually been, I've had a one-on-one coach, and I had a personal coach. Even though they could have helped me with my business, and I had multiple opportunities to ask about business help, for whatever reason, I just never reached out for that entrepreneurial help. And just recently I realized, like, I'm an amazing person now, right? I've taken off all these layers that were weighing me down, where I was trying to pretend to be, your perfect version of me, which is exhausting. And so, working one-on-one with a personal coach has made me uncover this person that I really love and enjoy. And I think I'm pretty cool most of the time, but my business has always stayed the same throughout all of this personal health, throughout this personal coaching. And so I literally, like, 2 weeks ago decided, okay, I need to hire a business coach. And she does a lot of the same similar stuff that you do. But it's been eye-opening. So what's something that, like, how do you walk through with your clients?
Yeah. So I actually use what I call the purpose-based framework, mainly because my ideal clients are purpose-driven, right? They want to create a legacy and global impact with their businesses, and generate wealth for their the legacy, for the kids, for generations to come. So the purpose-based framework literally is like, it's 5 P's, I believe it is. So I start off with their purpose, and we really did get defined on what their purpose is. What is it that they want to achieve with their business? Then we do person. So like the whole avatar and your niche, and really get clarifying who that person is, what that person is. The next step is your package. So we create your offers and what that looks like, and package it in a way that makes sense for your ideal client. We price it accordingly. And then the next is positioning, which is super key, because I also help my clients mainly with high ticket programs. So your positioning has to be on point when you're selling at high ticket prices. So we help with positioning. And then the last piece is process. And process is all about lead generation strategy. So content creation, partnerships and such. And then sales, right? How to convert on sales calls. I know that's a scary time for most people, but there's a lot of mindset work that obviously is interweaving in all of these things, because mindset is the most important part of it, especially as moms, because we'll get in our own heads and overthink everything, and be like, oh my goodness, am I doing this the right way? Should I do it this way? And so that's my framework.
Yeah, I just, like, you said that and I reacted in my body just now, where I don't know if I was holding my breath but it was just like, when you finished. Oh, I don't even know what that was. That's so interesting. I don't know that that's ever happened before, which is really cool. So, tell me a little bit more about, you said it was 5 P's, I think. I wasn't counting. It sounded like more than 5, like maybe 6.
It is 6, because if you count price, sometimes I clump the price together, but if we separate it, it's 6. I always get it like where is it?
Yeah. So now I forgot my question, which is awesome. So your 5 P's, the time frame, is it 3 months, 6 months? Is it a year? Like, how long do you guide your clients for?
So I guide my clients really depending on what they need. The smallest amount of time is obviously 3 months. When I was working with newer coaches, I usually try to do 6 months, because 3 months is kind of a short amount of time, especially when you're just starting off, right? Now I work with a little bit more experienced coaches, so they kind of have some of the foundational pieces in place. They just need someone to come in and fill the gaps where there's kind of holes, and clarify certain areas that they may have been, missing. So it's usually 3 months, and then I have a 6-month package, and then a year if someone wants that. But usually I get really hyper focused when I look at their business and see where they're at and what's going on, to be able to really pinpoint quickly like what needs to happen to get them to their goal, their results that they're looking for. And so we just focus on the clarity piece and getting that all set up, and then strategy doesn't take long. Once you nail down your clarity, you know what you're doing, your messaging's on point, and you just go from there.
Awesome. And it sounds like you have, all of the things that you've listed, where you have who your person and your picture and all of that. So you are practicing what you preach, and there's 2 more P's for you.
Yeah. I love it. It looks like that's the word of the day today.
Right. It's really interesting, because you started out, working with a different avatar in mind, and then your person found you, right? So, my story is a little bit similar, where I always knew I wanted to work with moms. I didn't really know why, except that I was a mom and I knew I could relate. I kind of wanted to work with entrepreneurial moms, again, because I was an entrepreneur and a mom. So again, I could relate. And then when I had I just had my mom guilt released, that was kind of where I was focusing for a long time. And honestly, just recently, I've added, some other aspects and I'm working on my acronym, so my listeners get to hear as I go along, as I create this acronym for peace, again with P.
I love it.
Because there's 5 things that moms deal with that really suck out the joy from their life and the peace from their life. And when I started interviewing moms to kind of get into their head and really see things from their perspective, because yes, I'm a mom, but I've gone through this evolution process. So I'm on the other side of this peace and joy wall. And so I use my language now instead of theirs. So,
Yes.
you know, inside interviewing different moms, one question I would ask was, what is it that you want most in your life? And I'm hard pressed to think of one person that didn't say peace.
Makes sense.
You know, and so you said, I think you said you don't like the word balance because there's no such thing, but there is such a thing as harmony. Yes. And we can have harmony in our life. And, you know, I love this idea of, you know, because it's not ever going to be completely balanced. And I think that that's something that, you know, is one thing that sucks the joy from your life, is that you think that you're supposed to have this balance where we have 8 hours of working and 8 hours with the kids and 8 hours of sleep and balance. And
not that way at all.
It's especially not that way with an entrepreneur, because I don't know about you, but at times in my life, as in my business, I felt like I was always working. And it's still a little bit of an adjustment. We're just in the beginning of launching the podcast at the time that we're recording this. And I have an online calendar. And my online calendar said, you can book appointments from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. as long as there's nothing else in the time slot, which is great when nobody's asking to book with you. And then when you post in a podcast that you want to have podcast guests, all of a sudden you have 50 people wanting to book with you. And last week and a little bit of this week has been 12-hour days. And it was a lot. And I learned from, okay, let's adjust. So if I'm working, you know, my day job, and I'm working 8 hours at my day job, and I'm physically in the office, because while we're recording this, we're still transitioning from COVID. You know, if I'm in the office for 8 hours, I don't want to come home and record a podcast. I just don't. So nope. I'm going to block this time as this is family time. I'm going to hang out with my family now. And just little tweaks and adjustments without judgment, without, how stupid are you? Of course you're going to be working 12-hour days if you have 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, there's none of that.
Love that.
You know, so is there anything, does that strike up anything that you would tell an entrepreneur mom?
I mean, honestly, it's funny you say that, because that used to be like me. I'd be like, oh, like you've taken so much time. And so that's where, like you said, it's a learning experience, right? You go through a situation where you're like, oh, no, that's not going to work. Not with my schedule, especially with little ones. And so I've been really, you know, mindful of my time. Like time is one of those things, right? Like you don't really recognize how much of it you don't have until you're like, yeah, my time is so precious. And so, yeah, so time is such an important asset that you don't really think about until you've had situations like you talked about. There was a point of time when I was recording my podcast, and I had booked so many people, and then I also had client calls, and then I was like, oh my goodness, this was not the smartest idea. And I learned, right? I adjusted, and I make sure I don't ever put things back to back anymore. I'm very intentional about putting even gaps in my schedule, because kids will run into different things, will happen, and I want to make sure I have time to incorporate all of it.
Absolutely. So what you listeners missed was, it was your daughter. Was it your daughter?
Yes,
you have
my
two,
daughter.
Two girls? You have two daughters?
No, I have a daughter and a son. So both of them came in, but my son didn't say anything. It was my daughter. Yeah. Demanding stuff.
I mean, and that's real. And it's like, that's what edit's for. That's what pause is for. And, when you, especially after COVID and everybody working from home, I think that people are just, they expect it. Like, we all understand that there's chaos inside our home sometimes, and it's okay, but the old me would not have been okay with the chaos. And every once in a while I slip back into that old me. My son and I were recording a video, because at some point I'm going to launch him and I doing Xandersations. So my son's name is Xander, and we have conversations.
I love it.
Isn't it cool? Xandersations. Yeah. So right now I do hashtag Xandersations, and I write it out, whatever he says, and he's hysterical. And we were recording our very first one. And the first time we start recording, he's got his finger up his nose, and and I'm laughing it off at first, and then and then I got irritated because it's like, okay, stop, like, what is wrong? And that's just me slipping back into the old me, and I kind of snapped at him, and I kind of took the fun out of it, and we haven't done one since. So, I'm done. Yeah, I haven't asked him to. I felt really bad about it, but I make mistakes too. I own up to them. I tell him I'm sorry. So, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. And I think that's really good for moms, especially entrepreneur moms. Like, you got to do what you got to do sometimes.
Yeah. Our life is unpredictability. So
absolutely.
Just go with it.
Is there a book that you have fallen in love with, personal development related or parenting related, that you want to share with our listeners?
Good question. I don't know if there's a book. I haven't read any parenting books, which is interesting because I'm a wing it, which I don't know.
Yeah.
Just wing it.
Hey, 100%. I
mean, people give me suggestions and I'm like, maybe I'll take them. I don't know. But
one of my favorite parenting books, and I'm the kind of person where I'll pick an author or an expert, and I just I stalk them forever. Like, they're my person, right? So, like, my life coach, I've been with him for 5 years. I started with him. I've been with him for 5 years. Like, I stick with people. I'm loyal, maybe was the word I'm looking for. But my parenting expert book is called No Drama Discipline. And I think it's Daniel, here I am outing myself that I can't remember his name, but it's Daniel like Spiegel or something. I bought all of his books. I just can't remember his name. Because he came up with the whole brain approach to parenting, and I'm obsessed with how our brains work. So I thought that was really cool. And it's totally fine. You haven't read any parenting books. I'm a wing it girl too. I was just struggling with drama discipline. And I thought, no drama discipline sounds amazing. And then I was hooked. So what about any personal development books?
Yeah. So while I was in higher education for 10 years, so I got to read quite a bit, but I think, I forget what it's called. It's not Jack Canfield, even though I love his books too.
He's good too.
Stephen Covey. Stephen Covey, do you know him?
It's a
leadership book that he has. He has many books, but it's a leadership book, and I remember going through it, and it was helping me in the moment with personal development, both in my 9 to 5 at the time, and just my personal development. So I'll pick up a book randomly and read it. I'm not loyal. I'm just like, I like this book, I will read it. And get what I can from it, and keep it moving. But I love that. But I love the book you mentioned, because now I'm like, maybe I should. My 4-year-old she's 4, and she's getting to that age, making her own decisions, which is amazing. I'm a big believer in that. Kids should be, as they're getting more independent. But I think, drama comes with with age, and comes drama, and just a new level of learning for me, right? Like, parenting, just like entrepreneurship, is definitely a learning curve. For sure.
Absolutely, for sure. And it's nice to have guidance, and that's what a coach is a guide on the side, and somebody to help you. And that's, we get a lot of education, a lot of learning from books. But the thing that I love about No Drama Discipline is it was very in alignment with me. And I didn't read it right away because, I stopped spanking a long time ago. That was part of my story, is that I was taking my anger out on my son, and I didn't ever really hurt him. But I spanked him to the point where my hand hurt, and he wasn't giving me the reaction that I wanted. This is all pre-personal development. He and I was such an angry person at that point, going through a divorce, not wanting to be a single mom, all of the stuff that goes along with that. And I remember my hand hurting, and he wasn't responding to it at all. And I just thought, my someone in my family, their mom broke their hand spanking them. And I always knew that was wrong. My mom never really spanked us kids. And so it wasn't something I wanted to do to begin with. So I had stopped doing that. I was super proud of it. Sorry for the little tangent there, but so I thought, well, he responds better to timeouts anyway, because he doesn't want to be in a timeout. He wants to be where the people are. He's very much my child, and in the very first chapter, they're like, so timeouts are useless. And not his words, that's my interpretation of what he said. Timeouts are useless. And I'm like, oh, no. And so I put it down.
Right? You're like, no, it doesn't go with the line what I'm doing. Yes.
Right. So I did end up picking it back up and finishing it. And the reason that timeouts aren't as effective as we want them to be is because they're not sitting in their room thinking about what they did, right? They're sitting in their room thinking about how mean mommy is for putting me in my room.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So he walks you through, connection first and then the lesson. And I'll tell you that a lot of times the first thing I do when my son is upset is I say, hey, do you want a hug? And sometimes he says yes, and sometimes he says no, honestly. But most of the time he says yes. And even when he does say no, he'll walk away, and then he'll come back, and then he'll be ready for that hug.
Love
it. And
Love
so anyway, I highly recommend that book.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna take a look for sure. I mentally took a note.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming today, and I'm so sorry that I've butchered your name to the point where I'm afraid to pronounce it. But where can people find you?
Yeah, so everything is my name. So my website is oninyeanike.com. You can find me on Facebook, Onyinye Anike, Instagram, Onyinye Anike as well.
Do you want to spell it? And then it'll be in the show notes too for ease for people, but you can spell your name if you'd like.
Yeah, sure. So it's ONYINYECANIKE and then .com for my website. There's also a free gift if you want to check that out for mompreneurs to be able to land high ticket clients. I have an ebook there too, but it's oninyeanike.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you again for joining me today, and we will see you next time. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to Imperfect Momming. It's time for us to step up and realize that our power is not in trying to shape our children. Our power lies in shaping ourselves into the people we want our children to model themselves after. Don't just do it for your kids. Do it for yourself. When you become a more self-aware, compassionate, and confident person, you and everyone around you benefit. For more information about me and my work, visit alicialyons.com. That's ALYSIALYONS.com. See you next time.